Hi everyone, and welcome to Moxxie Life Coaching. I'm Michelle, and I'll be your host as we explore what life coaching is and how it can empower you to create and live your best life. We'll talk about topics ranging from our own self-defeating behaviors to getting to know our authentic selves. Together, we'll investigate a variety of self-coaching modalities and explore a wide range of topics relevant to getting the most out of the life that you are actively creating. New episodes will drop every Tuesday, so please subscribe so you don't miss out on the great hints, tips, and tricks, and generally awesome content that will help you create your best life. So welcome, and thank you for listening. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Moxxie Coaching Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I'm your host. And this week we're going to be talking about different approaches to reading the tarot. I've wondered how many people put the tarot down in frustration and never pick it up again when they look at the amount of information that's available, the depth of information that's available, the depth of the symbolism in the cards, and so forth. So despite the fact that it's an incredible tool for personal growth and development, some people just find the learning curve a little too intimidating, a little too much work, and back off. And I really do think that that's unfortunate because clearly I wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't think that it was a valuable tool. So I wanted to reach out and let everyone know that there really is no one single correct way to interpret the tarot. And as a person who appreciates that clarity, who appreciates the direction and having something have a correct answer and an incorrect answer and a yes and a no, that really threw me for a loop. It was a challenge for me to figure out how I was going to read, essentially. And I have and do all of the methods that we're going to talk about today. The first type of reader is the purist. And the purist is someone who approaches tarot by the book. Almost every deck that you purchase will come with a little textbook or a little book of meanings that are specific to the design of those cards. So while we talked about the Rider-Smith Waite deck being the standard, and that comes with its own little book, not most decks, many decks though, are, what do I want to call them, incarnations or interpretations of the Rider-Smith Waite deck. So there is a strong resemblance in the symbolism, there can be a strong resemblance in the card interpretations and all of those types of things. So the books are a really good way to not only learn the foundation of the tarot, but to get a little bit better idea of what the author was thinking and what that specific deck has to offer. If the deck is based on, based on the Rider-Smith Waite deck, then fundamentally the card meanings are going to be the same as the original Rider-Smith Waite deck. However, there are some tarot artists who also enjoy writing, and they will give you incredibly detailed descriptions about their card and how that card should be interpreted and what you can glean from that card. So while I would recommend that you start out with the Rider-Smith Waite, don't hesitate once you get comfortable with that to branch out to other RSW based decks because that foundation will be there. You will be able to read them. Now, when I say you will be able to read them, what I mean by that is that the meanings will be similar enough that you can read them. I will say that there are some decks that just resonate with me and some decks that absolutely don't. So if it's a Rider-Smith weight deck and it doesn't resonate, doesn't do much for me, then I just don't use it. I choose to use the decks that I feel I'm able to read the best. However, if I'm doing a reading for someone else and they would like to have me use a different deck, all my decks are RSW decks, so I can use them interchangeably in a reading. So what are the pros and cons of being a purist? Well, the pros are that if you're uncomfortable with interpreting the card meanings, the textbook descriptions are comforting. They provide the core knowledge that you need. Again, it provides a really solid foundation. You can learn the symbolism, you can learn the cultural references and all of that. On the negative side, or on the less desirable side, of course, is just the sheer amount of time that it takes to really become deeply proficient. And that can scare some people away. But don't let it scare you away, because we're going to talk about some other reading methods next that are perfect for when you are starting out. So while being a purist has its pros and its cons, I would still recommend that learning to function as a purist is a great way to enhance your card reading. And there's never a time that you will regret having done so. It's just going to make your readings more rich and more. So you know yourself well enough to know that it's not likely anytime soon that you're going to take the time to sit down and learn the details of all of the cards, but you are really, really curious about what you can learn about yourself through using the tarot. So you are an illustrator. And I really like this technique because it allows us to get started with the tarot when we have no concept of any of it. And in addition, you don't have to use just tarot cards. You can use oracle cards for this as well, because really what you're doing is you are focusing on the images in the cards, not the meanings in the cards. You're focusing on how those images strike you, how they make you feel, what they remind you of. Back to the inkblot test thing, right? You're looking at the card and seeing what it instills in you that's relevant to the situation. So again, I think we talked about this earlier, you are literally putting the cards out in front of you, face up, all of them, and you're shifting through the cards and you're moving through them, looking at them and choosing the cards that resonate with you, choosing the card that moves your thought process forward. So for example, and we'll do more of a full episode on how to do this, but for example, just briefly, let's say I am feeling, I'm having issues with someone at work, and I feel like maybe they are undermining me with my boss. And it makes me uncomfortable and it makes me angry and I'm frustrated and I don't know what to do because this person is someone the boss really seems to like, and I don't know what's going on. It makes me uncomfortable. So I can take my cards, lay them out, and begin to look through them and identify what card reflects how I'm feeling right now. What card reflects how I perceive the other people in the situation? feeling or behaving or doing right now? How would I like to see the situation resolved? Choose a card that illustrates something that you would like to see as the end result of your exploration, as an end result of trying to figure out this situation. And when we use this method, the best way to do it is to ask specific questions of ourselves and specific questions that we can answer by choosing cards. And when we choose those cards, we need to articulate why we chose them. So, for example, I chose the Eight of Swords because I'm feeling constrained and constricted and like I don't know what to do. And I need to break out of this feeling of contraction, this feeling of contraction. Or I look down and I see the Six of Swords. And the Six of Swords is the card where someone is passengering, transporting two huddled figures in a boat from roiled waters to calm waters, from a chaotic situation to a calm situation. And that's how I want to feel. So that's the card I'm pulling. And when I do my journaling, I articulate that. And if I'm able to let the ideas flow, if I'm able to remove the filter between my brain and my hand and just let whatever comes come, I'm really likely to gain some insight into the situation, especially if I'm willing to do that journaling for each of the cards that I pull. And again, that's why I think that this is such a great technique to get started. I also think it's a great technique to use in between a coaching session or in between a counseling session to touch base, to recenter, to help yourself while you're waiting to talk to your coach if you're having a really difficult time. On the positive side, like I said, you can get started with this immediately. You begin to gain familiarity with the cards. You begin to develop a relationship with the cards. And really, one of the most important things is you begin to develop your own interpretation of the cards. What does that card mean for you? Not what does it mean for everyone and their brother, but what does it mean for you? It also helps us learn to look at the cards with a more detailed eye, because part of the process is to really examine the card and identify how it's making us feel. And when you're examining a card at that level, oh, I noticed there's a bird flying overhead and the bird is doing this, or it makes me feel that way. It just increases your relationship with the cards. It increases the depth and the richness of your own personal reading. And it provides you, again, a further foundation for if you decide that you want to go on and become a purist, right? Or become an element of the purist, or become a version of the purist. Now, on the con side, really the only thing I would say is that potentially the reading might lack some richness and some depth when you're not addressing the traditional symbolism of the cards and when the numerology of the cards is ignored. And those are things that really you're most likely to get when you do a deep dive into a particular deck or into the RSW deck. But overall, in terms of you want to get started and you're not sure how, that's the way to do it. Sit down with your cards and just talk to them. Just ask them questions and pull cards that resonate with you based on the questions that you have. And like I said, we'll go over this method in detail, and I'll provide some examples in a future podcast. All right, another option for those of you who don't have any interest in being the purist is to approach it as would an oracle, as would a seer, someone who is psychic, someone who knows how things are going to shake out in the world. And the oracle is the complete opposite of the purist. They depend on their intuition, and their intuition and their brain work together to impart a meaning to the cards. They might use a spread, but probably they're not going to. The oracle wants complete flexibility in the way that they're using and reading their cards. This is clearly something that works better for those of us who have been cultivating our intuition, but it's also a great way to cultivate the intuition, to begin to play around a little bit and see just what your intuition tells you about the card. If, for example, you are an illustrator and you want to try to use the oracle method, go ahead and lay out a few specific cards. You know, do your shuffling, do your centering, lay out, let's say, 3 cards right next to each other, and just feel, just look and feel what those cards are trying to tell you. What does it bring up? Does it make your body feel a particular way? Does it ping anything in your subconscious? Does it ping a memory? How does it, what's going on, right? It's a really interesting and fun way to read, and I would recommend at least giving it a try, just playing with it. On the positive side, again, you can begin almost immediately. All you need is a deck of cards. And if you're depending on your intuition and you're using your own intuitive interpretation of the cards, you have everything you need if you have just a deck. And again, this is one that, this is a reading type that you can use tarot cards or oracle cards or soul cards or any of those that resonate with you in terms of the images that they provide. And the last tarot reading type is what I call the amalgamator, and that is the person who essentially combines and blends and merges and mixes and develops their own reading style using a combination of all of these reading types. It's the optimal way to read if you are truly interested in digging deeply into the tarot. It's the way most professional tarot readers read. They don't just choose one method. You're probably rarely going to find a professional tarot reader or an extremely proficient tarot reader who is 100% a purist, because while that does provide us a lot of information, why there's a lot of detail within that concept of the purist, it leaves out this whole other element of intuition and what our body is saying to us and what our subconscious is saying to us. So if you are interested in digging and diving deeply into the tarot, I would recommend that the amalgamator just be your goal. Go ahead and get started with the oracle or the illustrator. Just get the cards out in front of you, just start to get to know them. Since I know a lot of you are new to the tarot, I really want to make sure that you're able to get started quickly. So next week in our podcast, I will walk you through an Illustrator reading. So you can dig into the cards, you can start to become more familiar with the cards as we continue the podcast and launch into more advanced content. So if you don't have your cards yet, get your deck and prepare, because next week we will be digging in and learning how to become more of an illustrator with our cards. Okay, that is it for the week. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the week and weekend. And please remember to like and subscribe and all of those things. I would greatly appreciate any positive reviews you can provide for the podcast, any likes, all of those good things, because that helps more people find me. And I think that's about it. So have a fantastic week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.